All right. Well, good morning and welcome to the Big Breakup Writing Lab. For those of you who have not reached 1.5.2 yet, what you want to do is create a Google Doc that says Writing Lab on it. And then you can upload that for every assignment to get to 1.5.2. If it's a discussion board, you're just going to type the phrase Writing Lab. Submit that for each one. But remember that you are responsible for coming back and actually doing those assignments. But we want to make sure that you can turn in the essay on time. So just make sure that you can get to that. And that way you can move forward. Okay, so the big piece right now is the Declaration of Independence. And in your junior year, I talked with Mr. Warner, who is our U.S. history teacher here at the Kern Learning Central location. And he said that district-wide, the curriculum is going to focus on the Declaration of Independence throughout the U.S. history course. So I thought it was a good idea that if we could start out with this, read through it and understand what it means, then it's going to be a lot easier for you when you get into the nitty-gritty stuff when it comes to U.S. history. So that's why we're starting with this module. It's kind of a tough one to start with, but this way you've got a foundation that you can build on in both my class and in the social studies class that you take. So what I like to do, hopefully you've heard of the Soapstone method. And Miriam, do you remember doing this last year in our class?
The what?
Soapstone. Does that ring a bell?
No, I came for only half.
Okay. I didn't know. I do it often because it is it's a way that you can get your focus on a document that is really hard to understand. Cheryl, have you heard of Soapstone before?
No, I haven't.
Okay. It's an acronym that stands for subject, occasion, audience, purpose, speakers, and tone. And so we'll go through this one at a time. I'll tell you what each one means, and then we'll figure out what it is for the Declaration of Independence. So the first one, subject, is easy. It's what is the general topic of this document? So how could you summarize in one sentence what this document is about?
I can try.
Go ahead.
This document is about how they wanted to rule their country.
Okay. And at this point, is this a new country at this point?
No.
No. And by the way, Mr. Short, are you hearing Miriam okay on the microphone? Or would you like
Oh, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, just want to make sure. So what country are we talking about in this document?
In this document, America?
We're not America yet. We're the unanimous declaration of the United States. They're naming that, but the country we're really talking about is Great Britain.
Oh, because of
right? Yeah. So up until this point, everybody who is in the colonies who came over came from Britain. They are still British citizens.
Yeah.
And so what this is doing is it is separating itself from the colonies are separating themselves from that government. So the subject now, what is the number one reason why they're doing this?
Because of the king.
Right. So the King of Britain has mistreated them so badly, they are now declaring themselves separate from Britain.
So they have all these reasons why they have to separate and why he betrayed them or how he ruined everything.
Very good. That's right. So the subject is the reasons why they're declaring their independence because of the list of grievances that they had with the king. That's the subject. The occasion is what has prompted this to be written. Anytime you're thinking of the occasion, it's kind of hard in school when, if I ask what's the occasion for this essay, and you say, because our teacher assigned it to me. And that's not really why people write. People have specific reasons why they write, and it's because of something that has happened. That's what's known as the rhetorical situation. What has happened in the world or around you that prompts you to write something. So in this case, what was the occasion?
Why they had to write it?
Why did they finally have to write it?
Because they couldn't, how do I say this? They couldn't hang with the king for much longer because maybe in the future he might make a bigger mistake that would lead to something.
There was a final straw that it had been starting, this had been going on for quite some time. Mr. Short, I have to admit, my U.S. history is very vague. Do you happen to know if there was one specific event that they decided, okay, this is it. We need to declare our independence?
I'm pretty sure there was, but I can't recall what it was. Sorry.
We're English teachers, right? Me too. I do know, I've watched there's an HBO special called John Adams.
Yeah, you told us.
Yeah, and I think it's fabulous. I did ask Mr. Warner, I said, in terms of accuracy, how good is it? And he said, and I quote, "It will do." And for Mr. Warner to say that means you can get a good idea. So I know that there were several things that happened. For example, do you know the reference to the shot heard round the world? Have you heard that before? Yeah. You've heard it before. Cheryl, have you heard that before? The shot heard round the world?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. Do you know what it refers to?
I can't remember.
It was in Boston, when there were some colonists, and they're under a militia. They're under the militia at this point, so there's curfews. They're not supposed to be out, but these are British citizens who should have the right to go where they want, but because they have been told you have to go into your houses at night, they kind of put up this protest. Now, these are all farmers, they're tradesmen. These are not rich society people. These are just working class citizens. Yeah. And so they do not have weapons. Or I think, well, I don't know. It's said that they didn't have weapons. They confront the British militia. And there's this kind of standoff. And at some point, a gun is fired. And nobody knows who started it. But what the result was this, we have to take matters into our own hands. We could say that might have been the beginning of the occasion, but it does take them quite a bit building up before they get to this declaration. So that is occasion. It's what's happening in time in the world around you that makes you give a statement. Now, audience is who the text is directed to. So who is this text directed to?
The colonists, the people.
No.
No? Oh, to the king.
It is to the king. Now, the colonists themselves, this document did have to be approved by the governors who were over the people. So it is, in a sense, it's a secondary audience.
Yeah, it feels like it's directed to the king and to the people.
Right, because what they're saying is, look, this is exactly what we're objecting to. And at the time, people were going to have the choice to return to Britain as British citizens, or to stay in the colonies and be, everybody who stayed there was going to be accused of tyranny, or not tyranny. I've lost the word. What does it mean when you're going against the government? Treason. There we go.
Treason.
Tyranny, treason, both start with T. So, and we are going to talk a little bit more about audience later on, because that becomes one of the focus points of one of the articles that we read. But the audience is first King George, and secondarily it is the people. Purpose. All writing will fit under three categories of purposes: to inform, to entertain, and to persuade. You start the purpose with that. So is this document meant to inform, persuade, or entertain?
Persuade.
Okay. Persuade who of what?
Okay, it's to persuade the colonists that the king is no longer fit. So they have to separate.
Okay. Yes. And there's a certain amount of information, because that's you've identified the audience in that one as the people.
Yeah.
So the purpose of this for the people is to persuade them.
Mm.
The other audience, the king, what is the purpose for him?
To see what he's done and back off, or to
He's not going to back. Well, obviously he won't back off. It's to inform him, we're separating. We are declaring our independence.
But why didn't they just tell him? Why did they have to write?
That's a really good question.
They just went up to him like, hey.
If they did that, then you're saying, look, you're nothing but a tyrant. We're leaving.
Yeah. Why can't they do that?
Why can't they do that?
Because they're going to get in trouble.
Right. They're going to get in trouble. Now, they're going to get in trouble either way. But the argument here, that's why that's exactly what happens when you write an essay. Why can't I just say this and have people believe it? Do they?
No.
No, they don't. You have to persuade. You have to give information. And so to say that to the king, it is kind of a slap in the face to him, but it's also the truth.
Yeah.
All of this is substantiated. All of this is evidence. When you're trying to persuade somebody of something, you have to have evidence. And this is a nice long list. I believe there's 27 grievances, I think is
they
what the
all
number.
start, or most of them start with he has.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the purpose is to inform the king of the reasons of their of separation from his monarchy, and also to persuade the people of the colonies to do this and why they need to do this. Okay, speaker or speakers. What do you know about the authors of this?
They feel strongly about the situation.
They do, yes, but who are they?
Their names?
Yes.
John Adams.
John Adams is one.
I didn't memorize their names. Is it on here?
The guy with the glasses.
Yeah, the guy with the glasses.
Who's the guy with the glasses? Cheryl, who's the guy with the glasses? Little
I
glasses.
don't remember, but I know Hamilton wrote.
It wasn't Hamilton. I don't think there were who are the other two. Benjamin Franklin is the guy with the glasses.
Yeah.
The main author, and maybe this is why you were thinking Hamilton, because their hair was the same, but he's the one, and he's the one featured in your textbook.
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson is the primary voice here, but there was the committee, and there's two other people on this committee. They don't show it in the Adams program, but it is in part of your history. There's 5 men who are on this committee to write this document. Thomas Jefferson. Now, what history will give us some information about Thomas Jefferson. Hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about him in U.S. history. But what we know about Jefferson is that he was a plantation owner. He had slaves. He was affluent. In fact...
Wait, is that the reason why he wanted the second paragraph too? He didn't want it?
He was the one who... it's not the second paragraph that he didn't want. He had it written differently in the first sentence.
He just wanted to remove some stuff.
Because here's the deal. You can't say all men are created equal and then turn around and own slaves.
Yeah.
So that's why I like that Adams thing that you saw at the very beginning of the module, because Franklin is pointing that out to him. There's a discrepancy here. But we're not in a position right now to deal with it.
Unless they're gonna let the people, the slaves go and let them live their life.
Right.
So they're gonna do that. They have to take it out.
Yeah, but if you're going to, it was kind of like this long process of what you had to do. In Britain, at this point, they're dealing with the same issues. There were slaves there, and there was a movement to free the slaves there. So the speakers were the leaders of these colonies. They governed the people. They heard a lot about what was going on with what the British soldiers were doing with the taxation. And so together they created this document. Now, tone refers to how would you read it aloud. If you were to read it aloud, you could tell how to use your voice to express emotion. Because we don't have that, because it's written, you have to go with the words themselves. So if you were to describe a tone for this, using an adjective, what would the tone be?
Angry.
Okay, good. Can you show me one spot where you know for sure he's angry?
Pretty much any point that mentions the king and the tyranny that has been committed by him.
Right. Look at the verbs that he uses in those grievances. Refused.
Forbidden.
Right. Refused again. Called together, not as strong. But if we look a little later on there, unusual, uncomfortable, and distant. Refused again. Whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people. It's the list of grievances is using all of these very strong, angry verbs. So that obviously would be the tone of this article. Okay. The prompt you're being asked is, what is or should be the role of the Declaration of Independence in our country today? I want to kind of put something in here because I know that it acts as a misconception. I had it myself for quite a while. When you were thinking about the historical documents, in your mind, you store them in one filing cabinet. What have you got? You've got the Declaration of Independence. You've got the Constitution that contains the preamble. You've got the Bill of Rights. You've got all of these documents. And in your mind, because this is often how we find them, they're clumped together. But they were not written together. Same kind of thing with the Bible or the Quran, or it has multiple pieces that have been put together over a period of time. And so you have to make sure you're referring to the Declaration of Independence as the actual list of things that has been done to people they have no right to do. When it comes to the government forming, now we're going to get into the Constitution and the laws. This is not about the laws. This is about how people should be treated. So what do you think the role should be today with this document? Let's go with the should first, because this is easy. Yes or no? Should the Declaration of Independence play a role in our society today?
I don't think all of it.
Okay. Why not all of it?
I mean, it has some things like, for example, the part where it says all men are created equally in the second paragraph. Maybe that should be changed
To what?
to like all men and women are created equally.
Okay.
Or like everybody's created or something like that, not just point it into one category.
Good. So updated me.
Yeah,
I think is what you're saying.
today.
You want to revise it.
Yeah, revise it to
Right.
today's ways of living.
What's interesting is that you'll be getting into this a little bit later in the semester, but Abigail Adams, who was married to John Adams, wrote a document written in much the same format. She used a parallel structure to make sure he remembered that women were part of this, that women were citizens. So, okay, so we want to make sure that the women are included, and I would think actually all people. Hi, good morning.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Everybody's
Everybody.
Like if they updated, it to today's society, today's world, today's being, that would be a lot better.
Yeah.
And then it would make more sense.
Now, what? So, let's look at the grievances here, because it's not. These are directed toward King George III, but it's also making an assumption about the rights that men and women are born with.
Oh yeah.
So, is there a resource, do you think, that Jefferson used to create this list of things that have happened to people that should not happen to people? Do you think he used any kind of resource to come up with this list?
Wait, I don't get it.
Okay. For example, can you go to any religious document and find this list?
No, not this exact thing.
It's just assumed, right?
Yeah.
And so it is these group of men, it was their opinion that everybody should have these basic human dignity rights. Are there any of those that you think do not apply to us today? Are there any of the list of grievances that you think should not be a part of what we would say should be every human's right?
What about paragraph 11, he has made judges depend on the will alone, and his will alone.
11, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. That's an interesting one. What does it mean when it says he has made judges dependent on his will alone?
So he just said, like, just what he wants to do, he can do. He doesn't care what the judges say.
So you're saying that judges should have the power to do whatever they want to do?
Well, no, but I think they should have a say in it.
They do. I think what's implied there is the word alone. So what he's saying is that, and this is not, the reason that this is capitalized here is supposed to refer to the king's will. So the king tells the judges that they need to rule how he thinks,
Yeah.
rather than on the evidence, on the testimonies,
No,
and on
I think that's better. I
right.
don't think he should rule.
That is the grievance that the colonists are saying the king has done.
Oh, okay.
Now, what's interesting is that the president has the power to nominate a judge for the Supreme Court. So that's what, and the Supreme Court justices have lifetime tenures unless they retire. They decide to retire. Now, the majority of judges actually die while serving on the panel, but and that's why it becomes such a big deal when the president nominates that person, because now everybody's saying, well, that judge is only going to vote the way the president wants him to.
Isn't that true though? Because
I don't think so. And here's what I do know: that judges have their own opinions, but I also know that they look at the law and they do make their judgments based on how the law is written. Does their bias sometimes influence how they vote? I believe that's true. But that's why there's 9 of them. That's why they're lifetime, because at this point, I believe I think it's 5-4, 5 leaning left. No, wait, 5 leaning right, 4 leaning left.
Wait, why isn't there 10?
Why isn't there 10?
Why does it have to be less on one of them?
It has to be odd. It has to be an odd number. Why?
Oh, so they don't get even votes.
Right. There's no tie.
Okay.
There can't be a tie. Now, in certain splits, that's something else. So that's why there's 9, because there has to be a deciding vote. So
Isn't that like, do they all vote at the same time?
yes, they all vote. They
So,
all
like,
hear.
put their
They hear the testimony. They deliberate behind closed doors, but they talk it all out, kind of like a jury would do in a case. But they're looking at the law and they're looking at the evidence, and they are deciding what it should be. What's interesting is that you also have courts at the state level, and those state level courts often will vote the way the state usually is. So it is kind of there. There is a certain amount of bias that goes along with that, but there is an attempt at balance. So, but that is an interesting one to look at.
Yeah.
Any others that you think? Well, let me ask you this. Were there any that you weren't sure what it was talking about, or you weren't sure why they were upset the king was doing that?
Okay, so paragraph 21, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretend offenses. Why did he have to take them that far?
The colonies were supposed to be an extension of the British Empire. But the way King George viewed it was get them as far away from as possible from me.
And for pretend offenses, like
So-
for offenses they didn't do,
Right.
you just took them.
Yeah. Where you're being sentenced to go to the colonies because you stole something. Oh, I didn't. Yes, you did. There's no evidence. We don't care. Go. That. Yeah.
Might as well just leave them on an island. And
Paragraph 25.
What?
Paragraph 25.
Paragraph 25. He has abdicated government here. Abdicated means given up or walked away from. By declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us.
Against his own people?
Right. That's exactly it. He viewed everybody who was over on this continent as being inferior.
So why did he want to be king from the beginning?
yeah. Was there nobody else?
This is not something. This is something you're born into.
So he doesn't have
Okay.
any siblings?
You know what? I don't know for sure about that, but if he's the firstborn, he's the one who gets the throne.
Well, couldn't they just kill him and get somebody else?
That would cause a lot of trouble, but it's happened. It does happen. It leaves the government vulnerable. And that's why people don't usually want to do that, because if you kill the leader, anybody can take over. So it has happened before. It's just not the best thing we want. And that's why they keep talking. Every president, somebody's tried to impeach every president
Really?
for decades. We almost impeached one president, and that was because there was definite evidence that he had conspired to commit a crime. He was spying on people.
Who?
The Democratic Party. He was trying to get reelected, and so he. Now there was a lot of debate as to what he actually knew and what he didn't, and there was evidence, but the evidence was covered up or lost, it was a big deal. And I was very little when this happened because this was back in the early 70s. But I remember that everybody was just kind of crazy. So everybody's tried to impeach the president because they don't like what he or she is doing. So they try to find a crime that he or she has done. But I will tell you this. If indeed we ever did impeach a president, it would not go well for the country.
So it's like you take one down, the rest go down with him.
Like I said, if you take one down, it's too easy to take down the rest. So you need to have somebody who's strong, and you need to give that person support. But it doesn't seem like that's.
But while him being a king, he wasn't the only person to make the decisions. Didn't he have like a group that they talk about making the decisions?
No.
So
Or
Was there
people to
I don't
teach
think
him how to for example, like how the president, he has the Senate's the House or whatever. He can't make the decisions,
okay.
all of them by himself.
Now there's something called Parliament in Great Britain, and it's the Parliament that does essentially what our House of Congress does.
Yeah, that's what
I don't believe. Maybe there was a Parliament. Here's where we get into the world history part.
So if he tries to do something bad, those would say
right.
no.
There was Parliament back then in King George's time, right, Mr. Short?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know enough about history to find out, to know why. I should find out why what powers they have. But a monarch is still going to have a lot more power over, at least he did at that time. Now, Parliament is the one that pretty much has the control of the laws in Britain, and the royal family just kind of goes and names things and appears places and expresses opinions that the Parliament may or may not support, but there's no monarchy rule there per se.
So if he makes a bad decision, they agree with it and let him do it?
but it's a queen right now, and actually she rarely does anything to, she kind of lets the parliament handle all the laws and so forth. So
No, I'm talking about like.
King George?
Yeah.
Well, like I said before, King George had syphilis. So he wasn't thinking straight. So that's, and I don't know what was done. I know that they were trying to control him, but he was king. They couldn't do that. So, and it wasn't something, it's at the time especially, it was not something that people could do. At that time, this document is the one thing that would bring him, not bring him down so much, but certainly cause a lot of trouble. And it did. The Revolutionary War lasted 5 years. And it almost broke the country. Britain was a much stronger entity to fight. The colonists had no training, no money, no weaponry. We had to get help from the French. The French were interested in the colonies separating because they didn't want the British government to be all over in control. So that's why they helped us. So the king at this point needed to be controlled, but nobody could really control him. So that's why the colonists declared independence. Okay. All right. So it will help to know if this is your prompt. Let's break it down for the task. What is your subject? What's this going to be about?
The Declaration.
Not just the Declaration of Independence, but the what of the Declaration of Independence? The role, what is the role of the Declaration of Independence today? Did I not? I thought I did. I guess I didn't. Okay. All right. Occasion. And this is kind of tough because Mrs. Campbell assigned it to us, or Mr. Short assigned it to us. No, that's not right. You could actually take either one of the articles that you read as your occasion in your response to it. We'll talk a little bit more about it. And I am giving you a third source because I noticed that the two that were in this module both lean left. What that means is they're more of the liberal, have a liberal viewpoint versus a Republican viewpoint. So I wanted to give you the Republican viewpoint as well. And that is actually linked in this presentation here. So you could use the occasion as being in response to either Gerson's article or who wrote the Twitter piece, the Wang. So if you wanted to kind of write it in response to that, that would be your occasion. Who is your audience? I'm so proud of you that you didn't say your teacher. Although technically I'm in the group. But who would you want to read this?
Depending on the occasion, whether we're responding to Gerson or Wayne. Like the readers are if they're against it or with it.
Mm-hmm. Or yeah, and I think you guys have a unique perspective. I was talking to you about that the other day. You have visited the place that does not have the same kind of human right document that it follows. Mm-hmm. And I would think that your audience could be the people who've lived here all our lives and have no clue as to what it's like to be in another country under a different government.
What are those people called?
What
are those people called?
Well, we go Native Americans now. We've changed it. I would say Native-born Americans, although you both were born here.
Yeah.
But still native-born Americans who have never visited outside the U.S. Now, Cheryl, who do you think you would want to listen to your opinion on the Declaration of Independence?
Would it be like today?
Yeah, definitely. So what group would you want to hear your opinion about what the Declaration of Independence should be to our society today?
I feel like it would be more directed toward like my age group of people because they don't really know a lot about the Declaration of Independence. So they could read the Declaration and have some sort of idea about it, but if I expressed my viewpoint on it, I feel like they would understand it differently.
Perfect. I like that. And I think that that would be a really good audience for a lot of people writing this. The young people of today are the ones who need to. We were talking. I'm joined by Afnan and Allah, and we were talking about the majority of people in this country now make up all the ethnic populations. Many years ago, it was predicted that, at least in the state of California, the population of Caucasian people would be in the minority. I think it was 25 years after 1995. Well, guess where we are? And indeed, Caucasians are now in the minority. In the state of California, I think the larger of the population is Hispanic, followed closely by Asian, but there's also a number of African American, Arabic. Are you Arabic American or
Muslim?
Muslim? Thank you. I'm sorry. Muslim. There's a number of the Muslim population has grown too. So it's the Declaration of Independence should still apply, shouldn't it? If this is what human dignity is all about, then everybody should be included under that document. And so, with you guys being the young voice of today, you're in the position to now shift that control back over so that we recognize this is every person. And that's why Maram said, I want to see every person instead of all men are created equal. So, good. What should your tone be?
Formal.
Formal, good. So,
Serious.
Definitely respectful.
Oh yeah.
Because if you start getting angry, now we kind of start looking at. I think that's what the problem is today. Both sides are so angry with each other, and they're yelling at each other, and nobody's listening. So, but that's my own personal opinion. Okay, now I have to apologize. I sent the email out. Mr. Short, you'll need to realize this as well. I never had you, I had you guys make survey questions, but I forgot to actually have you do the survey.
Yeah, I saw the inbox messages.
So I created 1.5.0 so that it could be done. And Mr. Short, I will send that to you so that you can put it in yours as well. So for this time around, the questions are only going to help you with if you need some more information. I'm going to go ahead and excuse people from it, but if you do it, it will count as points towards your grade. but I'm not going to give zeros if you don't do it. I would suggest just maybe asking somebody a question about what do you think, and then you can put the answer down. We have that record for people to go and look at if they need some more information. But as far as these survey questions are concerned, don't worry too much about them because I didn't have you work with them, and we're crunched for time. Okay. Did anybody ask any questions to anybody? No? Okay. All right. So what we're going to do then is have you rely more on the sources, the source material. You can go outside for other sources if you want. But one thing I have done, I did link, this is a link to the whole PDF that has the Declaration of Independence, and the 2 Washington Post articles. So when you click that link, it goes directly to the full PDF of all the articles. So let's take a look at the America is Not Normal. And I think if we do the Soapstone here as kind of a review, that helps us to find what we can use from this article. So let's start with the subject. Do you remember? I'll give you a minute to kind of look through this so you can remember what the major claim is from Gerson.
Subject is that we don't, like, people today are not using the DOI, like not referring back to it.
Right. They're not referring to it, yet we claim it is our very reason to exist separate from other governments. Okay. So yeah, to discuss the disparity between what the DOI says and what our country practices. I like how he brings Lincoln into this, because Lincoln is the one who's going to have to clean up the mess that the writers of the DOI left for him. At this point, it is he has to bring together the idea that you cannot say all men are created equal and then own some men and women and children. Okay, what was the occasion? Cheryl, you may be able to pick this one up right away. Remember that the occasion is... Go ahead.
I think the occasion was that Gerson stated that in times of anger and division, the people should turn to DOI. So he's saying that.
Okay.
So
what do you think was the cause of that anger and division that he wrote about? Tell you what, look up above that first paragraph.
Oh, this was during the presidential elections.
Actually, it was after he was elected. This is the July 4th, so this is the Independence Day holiday, the first one that of Trump's term. President Trump's term, or the election, has always been a source of a lot of anger and a lot of division. A lot of it has to do with the Electoral College. I don't know if you heard that if you counted every single vote, that would be the popular vote. So every vote has an equal space. Hillary Clinton should have been the winner. But because we have what's called the Electoral College, where in states with a smaller population, they actually get more votes than the ones with the larger population. So if what happens is the state says who they want, and then they get so many votes for the election. According to the Electoral College vote, it was President Trump who won. That's the one that's written in our Constitution. That's the one that we go by. So there has been a lot of division between, should Trump have been president or not. So this is the first Independence Day where President Trump, because he took office in January, right?
Okay. I remember it was my birthday.
Okay, so who is the audience for Gerson? And how do we find that out?
Wait, I don't get it. What was the occasion?
July 4th. After
Independence Day, the first independence holiday of President Trump's term. You shouldn't have to look really hard for the audience. It's kind of at the top of the page.
Americans.
Americans who read what?
Are not normal.
No, not quite. Although some people would say that the people who read the Washington Post weren't normal. The Washington Post, now, what I've done for you here in the presentation is I've linked the homepage. And if you take a look at the homepage of the Washington Post, I want you to read what they have underneath the name of their publication. What is their byline, their headline there?
Is it the one that says democracy dies in darkness?
That would be it. Can you figure out what that means? Do you know the significance of that? What's the tone? Democracy dies in angry?
Mad.
Could be. Dies in darkness, they're kind of morose words, aren't they? I mean, I would think that they're like, oh no, we don't want that. The inference here is being that, what would darkness mean? Particularly in light of the fact that this is a newspaper publication. What does darkness mean?
Something bad?
Mm-hmm. No light. You can't see what's going on. You don't know what's going on because it's dark. The implication here is that if people don't know, there is no democracy. And that with their byline there, they have a tendency to, what do you think, liberal or conservative? Do you know what the difference is between those two?
Liberal is freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Conservative is not.
Conservative is you look out for yourself and your family. Don't worry about other people. Mm-hmm. So I've also linked for you, there's a definition is what it means to lean left in a media bias. And this is the Washington Post. The Washington Post leans left is what they say. So federal law, we need the federal laws to protect consumers and the environment, equal rights, tax increases on the wealthy, government regulation of corporations, keeping abortion legal. So all of these indicate a leaning left bias. And when you go to this all sides, you can type in a publication and they'll tell you what is the predominance of the articles that are written. Do they tend to lean left or do they tend to lean right? Back to here. So the audience of this article, looking at what the Washington Post is, who would you say the audience for Gerson is?
The people that read.
The newspapers.
That particular one.
The
They're going to be leaning towards the left, because if they're more towards the right, chances are they won't even pick up the Washington Post. They expect the bias. Now, looking at the title, America Isn't a Normal Country, who's interested in that?
The people?
Mm-hmm. And especially the people who would agree.
Yeah.
When you see that kind of a title, America is not normal. Boy, don't I know it. They're going to read that article. So they're going to look at Gerson's article from the title and the fact that they're already reading that. So they tend to lean left, and they probably agree with the title that America is not a normal country. So after reading this, what do you think was Gerson's purpose? And remember, it's going to be either inform, persuade, or entertain. It could be a combination.
Inform.
Okay. Inform who of what?
Inform the people of the actual role of the DOI.
And what the DOI is really saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. He also brings in a little bit of the history element to it with Lincoln. And so that helps to support what is that document saying. So yeah, it's to inform the nation of the contents of the DOI and how the current interpretation is incorrect. Now, I've also given to you a link for Gerson himself. And here's what's kind of interesting. If you link on that for Gerson, he's a columnist for the Washington Post, but it says that Michael Gerson is a nationally syndicated columnist who appears twice weekly in the Post. He is the author of Heroic Conservatism and the co-author of City of Man, Religion and Politics in a New Era. He appears regularly on the PBS NewsHour and Face the Nation. Looking at just that biography, would you say that Gerson tends to lean left or lean right?
Right?
Yes. What were the words that gave you that clue? The clues.
In the
article? In the biography of Gerson. Take a look on which slide is this, by the way?
7.
7? If you click there, it'll take you right to Gerson. Or go in the meet and take a look. There's two. Go ahead.
A column.
Wouldn't be columnist, because columnists can be on either side.
It says he's the author of Heroic Conservatism.
Right. So that's meaning right. Heroic almost sounds to me like I'm going to be a conservative in a time where it's more popular to be liberal. That almost sounds like what that means to me. There's another clue, too.
And the co-author of City of Man.
After the colon.
Religion and
Religion.
Politics is a New Era. Okay.
Religion tends to move people right. So those two show us that while he is writing for a left-leaning paper, he really is leaning right. So for that, now his audience has expanded. Now we're starting to get, he wants the left-leaners to get a right-leaner's point of view when it comes to the Declaration of Independence. Tone. And I already gave that leaning right opinion. So you have the top link gives you the left lean. This one is going to give you, oh, no, I'm sorry. My bad. This link is actually a right-leaning article. So if you are a right-leaner, which I guess I am, I'm a right-leaner too, this also, same occasion, published on July 4th. Now, it was July 4th of this year, but this is going to give you the right-leaner's opinion of the Declaration of Independence. And what's interesting about it is this paragraph that starts with when Jefferson. Oh, and don't you hate him? Sorry. Go away. Okay. The paragraph says, when Jefferson wrote that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, he was referring to the natural law. The natural law teaches that right and wrong can be discerned and truth discovered by the exercise of human reason, independent of any commands from the government. How does this opinion deal with the opinions expressed by Gerner and Wang?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I'll read the right opinion. You're going to listen for what makes it different from the left-leaning opinion from Gerner and Wang. When Jefferson wrote that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, he was referring to the natural law. The natural law teaches that right and wrong can be discerned and truth discovered by the exercise of human reason, independent of any commands from the government.
The Constitution of Law.
Describing what the role of the DOI is.
The DOI, therefore, for the right-leaners, states that what is the role of government?
Oh, so it doesn't. So they're not supporting the DOI. Basically.
The DOI does not support the government,
Oh.
is what the right is saying. There's a sentence down below that says, the natural law also teaches that our rights come from our humanity, not from the government, and our humanity is a gift from our Creator. So what then would be the difference between how the left sees the DOI and the right sees the DOI?
The right sees it as not supporting to the government because the government doesn't want to. They want to do their own thing without the DOI.
Right, by still living to the principles of the DOI in treating people with respect. But the government should have no role in that.
Yeah.
So what the inference here is that the government should not have a role in, and I think a lot of this has to come down to what is the life, liberty, and remember that Benjamin Franklin was the one who changed it went to the pursuit of happiness from the word what? Do you remember that at all in the video?
Wait, what did he say?
Originally, the DOI said that we were all endowed by our Creator in the rights of to pursue. Now I lost it. We have the right to life, liberty, and
Pursuit of happiness.
that was replaced. That is the phrase that was replacing the word property. It originally was property.
What made them change it?
But they changed it. And when they changed it, that's where the inference is that this all has to do with what's internal. There are still people who believe in the property aspect of it. For example, is it the right to all people to a college education?
Community college.
If the people
It
wanna
still
go to
costs
college.
money.
Yeah, but it's less.
But everyone has a right to go, though.
Everybody has the right to go, but if they don't have the finances, who pays for it?
The
And who's the government? The people. So that's what the taxes go for. The taxes go for supplementing the student grants and loans. The idea is that if we educate the society, society will be stronger and will be able to support those who are,
Ourselves in the future.
Right. So that's where the argument boils down to. It comes to, okay, what's human dignity and what is an entitlement? And so that's where the line gets drawn. Okay, better move forward because I want to make sure we're all done by 10:30. So you have that article. If you would like a right leaning, I wanted to make sure that you had that. Okay. And let's take a look now at the NPR article by Wang. What was the occasion here? What was the event that sparked the writing of this article?
When they posted on Twitter the DOI on July 4th.
Correct.
They tweeted it different.
They tweeted the DOI without any kind of explanation.
Yeah, they just
tweeted the DOI on the 4th of July, and then all of a sudden, it blew up the social media. Okay. So what was the real issue described in this article?
The people that read it thought that.
I think they were mad.
Why?
Because they didn't understand that it was a Declaration of Independence, so they misunderstood a
What
lot of what was
What
said.
did they assume?
That it is against Trump.
Yeah.
They assumed it was against Trump.
Who sent it in the beginning?
NPR, National Public Radio, through their Twitter, they just simply tweeted it.
Oh, and they were also mad because of how much they were tweeting
Mm-hmm.
They were tweeting way too much.
Well, if you look at it, remember there's, what did we say, 27 accusations against the king, and you're limited to 140 characters in Twitter, so they had to do each one separately. So that it said in 113 consecutive posts. So when you divide that up, you've got all these tweets. Think of that. Especially if you were a subscriber or if you were following NPR, and all of a sudden you're getting nothing but these tweets from NPR. And the tweet alone would say, he has dissolved the representative houses repeatedly. That's all you'd see. You wouldn't see any other context to it. And so that was the assumption that they made, that, well, who's he? That's why pronouns kind of can get you into trouble. Why would they assume it was Trump?
His supporters assumed that, right?
His
supporters assumed that? Yeah.
His supporters assumed that.
Because it was posted on July 4th, like the day of the independence for America.
Okay, and we would associate the President of the United States with that independence. That's what we elect the president. We don't wait for God to give us who the king is. That's who we elected. So if reasons, and it does become, this is the problem with bias. It's also the problem with, the sources that you have to look at. You have to look and see who leans left, who leans right, because they can use language to influence almost on a subconscious level. So NPR is a left-leaner. NPR is tweeting find another one. Look at another. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. Does that sound like something Trump might do?
Yeah.
I don't think he would. He might. Well, I don't know. He's supposed to be saying that he's trying to cut back on taxes. But every president has to impose taxes because our government needs to survive. People need to get paid. People work for the government. They have kids. They need food. They need insurance. People have to get paid. We got to pay taxes, period. For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. You'd have to know some of the history behind that. Trump has kicked out the Democratic leadership from the cabinet meetings. Just blocked them, wouldn't let them in. He has done that. It was reported, it was confirmed. So people who were following the news, there were a lot of things that you could make the leap that, and that would have to be because you're already leaning left anyway. Or leaning right, rather. If you're leaning right, you would assume that this had happened. This is that they're speaking of Trump. I'll tell you something, that's what the left is accusing Trump of. Every one of these, I think he's been accused of. Has he done it? I don't watch enough news to really.
What was the real purpose? They tweeted that, though.
Good question. What would be it? Because I honestly don't know.
Maybe they tweeted it without giving any context because they wanted people to really think about what they were reading instead of them saying it was a Declaration of Independence, and then they're just like, oh, okay, well, now we know what it is. We don't have to make any opinions on it.
Mm-hmm. If you look at the list, remember that the basic accusation is that King George was a tyrant. All of these define tyranny. There have been those who have accused the president of being a tyrant himself. NPR, which has a tendency to lean left, probably just did it to make that point. However, people got a lot more upset, I think, than they expected. So, what is it that led readers to misinterpret it? Is there anything in the tweets in the document?
The grievances that were listed in the DOI is what made them misinterpret.
Never realizing once that that's what was in the Declaration of Independence. It made several points. First, it made the point of the power of social media. Then it made the point that people don't know a lot of the history of the country that they live in. And the fact that there was bias on everybody's part. It's the bias that really is the dividing factor. I think that's the point that NPR is making. That our division doesn't allow us to sit and think things out, read about things, etc. So a lot of this has to do with audience. It's kind of interesting that I don't follow NPR, but the majority of people do are left-leaners. If they retweet it, now it's going to be seen by their right-leaning friends. And now the right-leaning friends are going to look at this and say, this is awful. Look at what NPR just tweeted. So it really does talk a lot about audience bias. So what was the purpose of this article from Wang? What was her purpose? Remember, inform, persuade, or entertain.
Inform.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just telling, hey, what do you make of this? That's it. Okay, so there are questions that you want to consider as you put together your response to the question about what do you think is the role of the DOI in our society today? And that is, first, how can you make the reader interested in a paper about the Declaration of Independence? Not an easy document to read. Is it important for us to read it?
Yes.
They're all saying yes. Cheryl, is it important for us to read the DOI and know what's in it?
Yes.
Why?
Because it does relate to a lot of situations that are occurring today.
Very good.
So it's good for people to be reminded of the things that have been established.
And that's your number one. They need to know what has already been established, and they need to know how it affects them today. So somehow your hook will address that.
Ms. Campbell, for Wang's article, the audience are both left and right leaners. The audience.
Actually, Wang herself, reporting for the Washington Post. So we would assume that the Washington Post, since they're the left leaners, they might be left leaners. But
Also,
I don't think she's. Is there any tone in here? Does she give any tone in her description of what happens? Don't look at the tweets. Look at what she's saying about them. If you go through this, there's very few of her own words. They're just saying, here's what one person tweeted. Here's what another person tweeted. One person called them spam. Now, you do have in paragraph 9, the blowback increased when the tweets reached the portion of the Declaration that outlined in unsparing detail all the ways Britain's King George III had wronged the then colonies. There's a little bit of tone there, but I still think it's more objective than subjective. I would say Wang just reported it. This is strictly information.
so, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's for both, for both to read.
Definitely. Okay, so what background information does the reader need to know to understand the importance of the Declaration? What do they need to know?
Before reading what was the question?
What background information does the reader need to know to understand the importance of the Declaration?
The purpose of it?
Yes. That purpose definitely needs to be there. The fact that it was a list of the very grievances that the founders believed were the rights of humanity. How has the significance of the Declaration changed from 1706 to today?
They're not as followed as accurately.
It's not known as much as it was.
So the fact that it's not known is probably the reason why nobody's doing, or they're doing exactly what it says we shouldn't do. Okay. So what are the possible positions someone could take on this issue?
Right or left?
Lean right, lean left.
Yeah.
But
right.
if you were to look at the whole DOI, is the DOI itself leaning left or right?
Right.
Right. It leans right because it's declaring independence. Right conservatism is all about independence. Left democracy is about the collective community helping each other outside of the control of government. But the document itself, it would be considered right. And here's the thing, if we base our government on this document, there are certain things that we have to accept as truths. And some people may disagree with them. That's the hard part. This is what we base our country on. Not government, but the country. Okay. Other questions to consider include, what are the arguments in favor of my position? How can I support them? Again, I've given you that third article primarily because we weren't able to get the survey done. If you can get the survey in and get some advice from other people, I think that would be good evidence to have as well. What will people who disagree with me say? What are the arguments against my position? How can I refute them? Well, this one's kind of easy. It's right, left. It's those who understand what it is to live in a country that does not value human dignity versus those who have never had to experience that in their lives. They've always got what they wanted. And then, what do I want my reader to believe or do after they finish reading my essay? How do I want them to feel? That's all for the conclusion. What do you want to tell those people your age who you want to know, hey, here's what you should do, or here's what you should know? That kind of goes into your conclusion and your introduction as well. Okay. All right, so the working thesis. Your full prompt is there. What is or should be the role of the Declaration of Independence in our country today? Taking into account the survey your class did, well, you didn't do it, that's okay. The 2 articles from the Washington Post and the one from Fox News if you want it, and the text of the Declaration itself, write an essay in which you define the role that the Declaration should have, support why it should have this role, and discuss some concrete things that could be done to achieve it. The working thesis is all going to start the same. The Declaration of Independence, finish the sentence, should what? So anybody want to throw one out just to kind of see if it sticks?
Should be taken more seriously these days and referred back to a law
Perfect.
to solve a lot of problems occurring nowadays.
Very good.
The Declaration of Independence should be referred back to a law that should also be revised to fit today's times.
I like if you just went with revised, because that's a hook. That's a hook right there.
What did I say?
You could, and that what that focuses in on is what parts of the Declaration, based on our society today, how that should be reconfigured. Because the implication is still there. It's just that because of the society and the language of that day, it's not clear now. I like that. Okay, I've given you a possible outline. This is offered only to those who need it. You are not obligated to follow this exactly, but the elements should be there somewhere. So your introduction, as always, has a hook. What's the hook again?
The DOI should be referred back to.
That's the thesis.
The revised.
No. Well, yours is more of a hook, because I would not expect that. You know, as important as the DOI is, I think it should be revised. That's a hook. I want to read that one. The hook is what gets your reader interested in it. So if you started with, the division in our country today can be solved by one simple act, then you get to your thesis. The Declaration should be reread and reinterpreted for today. That's all you need for that introduction. It can be as short as 2 sentences. It could just be one. It's not a great idea, but if you have a strong title and the thesis, they work together as well. You will want to include the summary, but more soapstone content rather than information. So, Ala, you said earlier, definitely they need to know the purpose of this document.
Yeah.
And so that's the purpose, the audience, the occasion. That's what you're summarizing. If you tried to summarize the content of the Declaration of Independence, you could get away with saying that these are basic human dignities that everyone should have, but you don't need to go through the list. Okay. So what we know from history, and the evidence will also come from the 2 articles. Number 3, define the role of the document today. This is where you're actually now going to discuss what people should do with that DOI. How should it impact our country? who should know this? And then your conclusion should be, what is the next step? What do you want your audience to do with this information? So that is the basic outline. Even though it's section 1, 2, 3, and 4, it doesn't necessarily need one paragraph each. You may need 2 paragraphs for those. Depends on how you're going to construct it. Okay, I would like you to start practicing Mla Format. It is linked in 1.5.4. There's a reference page there. You also have a link to a Google Doc that's already Mla formatted. So all you have to do is click that link, you're ready to go. You want to make sure that you have the correct heading at the top. Remember that the heading is in the text of the document. It's not in the actual header. The only thing in the header is your last name and the page number. Then you go ahead and you put the as it shows, it's your name, class name, the date in Mla format, and my name. Make sure you look at the reference sheet though. I do want it double spaced. If you're not sure how to do that, it's really easy just to Google it. Just Google, how do I double space in Google Doc? And the instructions will come right up. In-text citation, you will need, because you're using Wang, you're using Gerner, and if possible, you're going to use that third one. That was Napolitano who did that one. So what you do is you put the last name, space, and the paragraph number you're referring to. You will need the works cited for these articles and any other source you use. The only thing you don't need to put in that works cited is the DOI itself. It's a public document. It's in the public domain, so it does not need citation. It would be handy, though, if you did put the reference number of the paragraph.
Okay, so we can say, like, according to the Declaration of Independence, paragraph 5.
Yes.
This.
Yes. So that's all you need. Okay. So here are the due dates, and these do count. These are the ones that these are actual due dates. First draft is due Thursday, September 5th at 11 p.m., 11:59 p.m. That's 1 minute before midnight. Then the next minute, the peer reviews go out. You need to make sure that you have that paper in before 11:59, well, at least midnight on the 6th, because if it's not there, you don't get a peer review assigned to you. Then the peer reviews are due Monday, September 9th at 11:59 p.m. Almost done. Okay. Late submissions. So if your first draft is submitted late, you will receive a 15% deduction because your essay will not be assigned a peer review. Then you have to complete the peer review on your own essay, and then that gets a 15% deduction. Now, if you're assigned a peer review, but you don't get it back to that person by the deadline, you will have points deducted there as well. Everybody needs to expect their peer review to come in before they're expected to sit and do the revision. So you want to make sure you have that for them. I did include the peer review instructions. There is a link there that describes this, and there's a video that goes in that link that can help you. But here are the steps. You want to make sure to follow these. This is the easiest I was able to make them. Hopefully now you guys have all had experience with peer reviews, so you know what you're doing. But for those of you out there who haven't done this before, follow these steps carefully one at a time. You should be okay. Okay. Any questions about anything we have gone over? Mr. Short, is there anything you would like to add?
For my students, this is a formal essay. Please do not use contractions in your writing. Don't write don't write it's, write do not, and it is, and make sure you capitalize the personal pronoun I. Just all the basic stuff that I write to you every time you guys submit something to me. No, I thought you did a great job, Ms. Campbell. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then we will go ahead and I will get this session posted. In the meantime, get to work. Good luck. Let me know if you need any help. Okay. All right. Thank you, Cheryl. You can go ahead and just close your Meet tab there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Campbell.
Thank you. Bye-bye.